Good morning, everyone. Oh, it's good to see ya. I slept in today. Look at my puffy eyes. I got more sleep than I needed, but I couldn't get out of bed. It's a quandary. You look wonderful, and we have a tiny skiff of snow, which is kind of fun. Um, my old mink cricker heart is not thrilled with the amount of snow we get here, but I've lived in Jerome, Idaho many years. I should get used to it. When we last read together, it was the boys had come to tip over old man Leverett's outhouse, and who was inside? Blossom as a ghost. He grabbed up his shotgun and jammed the butt into his shoulder and squeezed off the other barrel of rock salt. His large target was Les Dawson's behind. Of all the screams and whoops that rent the air that night, Les's was the loudest. He seemed to take flight from the top of the fence like an aeroplane fueled by rock salt, and he fell in an arc on the far side, howling all the way to the ground. Old man Leverett whooped again, very nearly helpless with laughter. His shotgun clattered to the earth, and he gasped and called out, "Well, Letty, I reckon we showed him. You, Letty, you hear me?" But I'd put out my candle by then and was making tracks towards home. I faded away behind a stand of dry hollyhocks, grinning as I went at the notion of Letty's shambob putting in such a night's work. Who is Blossom pretending to be? Letty, the little snooty, stuck-up girl at school. We know some of those at school, don't we? I feel bad for them. The events of that busy Halloween night cast a lengthier shadow than I bargained for. In the long run, many lives were changed, mine among them. But little I knew the next morning, there's nothing like a night's work well done to set you up for the next day. I headed off for school with a cup of black coffee in me by way of breakfast and an apple in my skirt pocket for lunch. She must be very slender. As a rule, I followed the streetcar tracks halfway to school, which is the long way around since I had to wear the same outfit in all weather. I would not parade myself down the best streets like Fairview Avenue, lined with the large homes of such well-off old-timers as Miss Gertrude Dabney and further along. The Shambaws. I have my pride just like anybody else. That morning, though, I trespassed across the Armsworth's property. My success as a ghost had backfired on me in one way. I'd scared Alexander into believing he could see ghosts again, at least for a brief period. This would remind him of a time him and me had shared, but my disguise kept him from knowing who had set him gibbering with fear and showed up the thugs he was running with as a bunch of crybabies. That's the insult we would use when we were children. Oh, you're a crybaby. It's harsh then. Especially Les Dawson. I like to see credit given where credit is due, and if the credit's due me, so much the better. Also, confession is good for the soul, as the poet says, though I'd have to catch Alexander before I could confess to him. It might take some while, but I was willing to wait. Still, with Armsworth's on my mind, I made a shortcut across their territory. Behind the ghost barn, their place rose up in all its glory. Autumn red clinging vines twined over their many porches and towers. The morning sun caught the stained glass of their windows. The Armsworth place is the third largest house in Bluff City, with a lawn befitting it. Drawn up to the side stood a new Ford automobile. This meant that Alexander's big sister Lucille was paying an early morning call. She's quite stout, so I guess she'd come round for a second breakfast. Lucille's the new bride of the newspaperman Lowell Seaforth, who was soon to figure big in my fortunes. If you're stout, it means you haven't gone without food for some time. The Ford automobile was her pa's wedding present to the happy couple. Lucille Armsworth Seaforth was a well-known hazard around town all summer while she's learning to drive the Ford. She is headstrong but easily distracted, making her a poor candidate for a license. My grandson Dawson has his driving permit, so whenever I'm near him, he drives my car and I have a chauffeur. It's very fabulous. While she was teaching herself to drive, the Ford got away from her and mowed down a line of shrubs on the Carnegie Library lawn. Veering the wrong way, she gunned the Ford up the front walk, and it tried to mount the library steps, destroying 2 stone urns. During this, Lucille rose in a seat and screamed, "Whoa!" to the Ford. Her pa paid all the damages and said publicly that, as to wedding presents, a set of silverware would have been a better bet. Just beyond the Ford was a big dining room window. From it came the sounds of the family at their breakfast. The smell of frying bacon drifted out, making me dizzy. The voices of Lucille and Mrs. Armsworth were raised in conversation. I took the sound of knives and forks to be Alexander and his pa silently putting their breakfast away. A hired girl was at their beck and call, and some people live high on the hog, and no mistake about it. News travels fast in a schoolyard. There was considerable buzzing about the strange events and gunfire of the night before. As usual, everybody had their own version of the story, nowhere near the truth. But various parts of their tales were right enough. It would only need one intelligent person to put those puzzle pieces together. Our grade at Horace Mann School was taught by the principal, Mrs. May Spaulding. She left nothing to chance, taking it on herself to whip us into shape before we moved across the road to the high school. And whip is a word you don't want to use lightly with Miss Spaulding. Though slender as a willow and ladylike, she had an arm on her like a bartender. Oh, if you're a principal in a school, you gotta have an arm on you. Les Dawson did not come to school till noon. I have an idea that his kin spent many hours picking rock salt out of him. A morning recess without Les was as good as Christmas for the smaller kids, for Les never missed a day of stealing their pennies, putting their lunch buckets in the trees. When he did come to school, he was in a meaner frame of mind than usual. Alexander was subdued throughout the day. As to Bub Timmons and Camp Ferguson, I did not know because they are across the road at the high school. During geography, I noticed a worrisome thing. Miss Spaulding was saying, "And who can name me 2 principal exports of Egypt?" Letty Schaubacher's hand flew up as usual. "Please, Miss Spaulding, Sisal, Cecil, and jute." "Very good, Lucy, Letty," Miss Spaulding said, expanded on the answer. I noticed that Les shot Letty a look. There was murder in his eye. Because they think that... It came to me that I'd passed myself off as Letty the night before. Old man Leverton had called out her name just as the boys were encouraged over the fence. There's only one girl in town by the name of Letty, and one is plenty. This muddled my thoughts. Like the rest of the girls, Letty's no friend of mine. She stuck up and with very little cause, though her pa owns the Select Dry Goods Company. Letty is a walking advertisement for it. She has more shirtwaists, skirts, and shoes, all well-fitting, than any 5 or 6 girls in school. She's also the president of a club for girls she founded herself. I know nothing of it except for its name. The Sunny Thoughts and Busy Fingers Sisterhood. Well, that's a mouthful. Only later did I learn how poorly it was named, for none of them had enough to do to keep their thoughts sunny or their fingers busy. Oh dear. It hasn't changed any in this day and age. We still have kids who are haughty and mean and ornery to other kids. The only way to combat that is to be really nice to them because it confuses them. Will you do that? Did you practice when someone is talking to you? Practice now with me. Looking right at their face, smile and say hello, and then you can look away. Or you can look at their rooster tail or something else. You don't have to stare right at their eyes, but make eye contact with them. I'm so proud of you for everything you have accomplished and everything you'll continue to accomplish. You're just going to get better and better and bigger and bigger. Stand tall. Be proud of who you are. Be kind to other people. It'll be the one thing that makes a difference if you can be kind. Even if they're ornery to you, you be kind and they'll be so confused. I love you. Have fun in that little skiff of snow out there. Bye for now.